Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Johnson. I'm the CEO of Leverage Consulting and the creator of Leverage U, the online university. I have my good friend here, Sarah Cooley, who will introduce herself in just a moment. But we're here to talk to you about how you pick your space and picking out the space that is absolutely right for you and your practice. In the 23 years I've been working with clients, I pulled together 5 things that I'm going to share with you. Sarah's got 5 things she's going to share with you. These are all things that have either helped clients either be more productive and create less stress, because you don't want to pick space that's too tight or too small. You don't want to pick space that limits you in your ability to produce. In doing that, you're going to have to think about, like, when you go out and look for space. Okay. And I'm not one that works for you in space. You want to look for somebody like Sarah that will help you find your space. Okay. But you have to start with what's the end product? What is the end that you want, say, in 3 years or 5 years? Because let's just say if you're a new practitioner, you might think, well, I only need one operatory. But in an ideal world, in 1 year, you need way more than one operatory. You want to be super busy. You don't want to get to a point where you're already bumping into your walls. So you have to think about the end in mind, which we're going to give you a number 10 things to think about with the end. And you also have to think it's not just about you, it's about your patients, because you have to think about your dental practice has to be geared towards making things easy for the patient. Consumers, I have to say, consumers are lazy. And when they're lazy, okay, they just vote with their feet and go elsewhere. So you have to think about, if you're a general dentist, you have to think about a number of different things and making it easy for them. But also as a specialist, you have to think of it in context of making it easy as well. But when you're a specialist, you have to think about making it easy not only for the patients, but also for your referring practices or referring doctors. So with that said, I think it'd be a great time for Sarah to introduce herself.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin, for having me on. My name is Sarah Cooley, and I am a commercial real estate broker. My background is I spent over 15 years in sports medicine. So anything sports, health, wellness, healthcare is my preferred area of focus and then what I'm passionate about. So I agree 100% with how you set this off and started it up. Space, we're going to talk about 10 great things to kind of give you a lot of things to think about. But it's still going to be important to hire someone like me, the broker, to work out the details to, the market specificities. Is that a word? Did I just make that up?
It is now.
The market specifics. There you go. But I think the big thing to keep in mind, that we always like to tell our clients is, there's no one size fits all space. So I think if you go with the mindset of that, then you're going to fight the urge to compare, to maybe one of your fellow practitioners, or your friend that might be in a different state. So the deal you got, the space you got might not be necessarily just like theirs because you're now in a different region, but really it's what kind of space do you need? So the number one, and I think it's the big location. So we can look at location from a broad perspective. So the first question is, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in an urban area, suburban? Do you want to be in a rural area? Do you need to be near a medical campus based on the way that you run your practice? I personally live on the border of North and South Carolina, so I have to take into consideration what state my clients are licensed in, because they can be licensed in North Carolina, but there's a great space maybe 1 block down the road, but that's in South Carolina. So we have to eliminate that. So you have to keep in mind, based on your location, are you licensed in that area?
Mm-hmm. So with that, and it's funny, when you're talking about location may also play into the type of practice that you're building, the type of model, the type of look that you want. So when you project in, whether you're a new practitioner and you're selecting your space and you're thinking about what do I want my practice to look like, or you've been in business and you're transitioning from one space to another space, you have to think about, what do you want it to look like? Because if you're building, for example, a full arch dental implant practice and these are high ticket items in a sense for patients, or you're building a cosmetic type of dental practice, you want to run a high-end pediatric dental practice, or you want to be the family practice, like Sarah's talking about in country, okay? You have to a space that in an area that's going to match the model that you are actually looking to create with your practice. So that's number 2.
Exactly. Yep. So exactly like, yeah. So what you said, what type of practice do you have and where does your target patient live, work and play? So are you targeting Medicare or Medicaid clients? Do you run a cash base? Do you take insurance? So you need to be in an area that has lots of families and kids. So you can do demographic and feasibility studies can help, with all of the location, income, population metrics that you're looking for to make sure that you're in the right place. So that's kind of like broad. If you want to make it a little more specific, kind of bring it home, it's like, how far is the location from your home? Are you going to be driving 10 minutes or an hour? Are you going to be stuck in traffic, and have road rage when you get into the clinic, or it's going to be right down the road? So is it convenient for you and even your employees? And then the other thing that's really important is, what businesses do you want to be around and what businesses do you not want to be around? So I think about complementary services that might boost your referrals. So if you're a specialist, you want to be near a generalist. If you focus on pediatrics, do you want to be near schools, other kid-focused businesses? Do you want to be near a grocery store so mom or dad can, get some errands done while the kid is visiting or having their appointment? So do you need to be near a pharmacy, lab testing? I just put a chiropractor next to your general dentist, and the chiropractor specializes in TMJ and upper neck. So that's a great complementary business to be next to each other. So, and on the other side, it's, who do you not want to have near you? So we were talking about a story where a client found a perfect space. It checked all the boxes. However, when we did a site tour, there was a CrossFit gym next door and they were like blaring Metallica. So right away, the client's like, no, this is not going to create a peaceful or restful environment for our patients. So that got nixed right away.
And I had a similar one where a oral surgery practice who was looking to create this, very patient-centric type of practice that catered to, certain clientele. And then, they selected this new space. And when you rode by beautiful buildings, when you rode by fantastic, it was kept very well, brick, white paint trim, everything looked fantastic. They signed the lease, got the space, and didn't realize literally right next door to them is a drug rehab clinic. So, and mind you, I think those folks need help, but if you're trying to select a space that's going to help you grow, okay, after they did that, they're out there cleaning up needles and, trash from people's cars and everything every morning, just to make sure that their space still looks attractive, and as you said earlier, they signed a 10-year lease for this place. So they're living next to the rehab clinic.
Right. And I think that's a great time to bring up, the space you end up leasing or buying is going to become synonymous with your practice, So selecting that right office space is going to be essential for keeping your clients happy, for, portraying the brand you want, and attracting the type of clientele you're looking for as well.
Yep.
So it can be negative that way, but it can also be positive too. Like if you're next to a restaurant that attracts a lot of traffic, while the patrons are outside waiting to be seated, they might see your space right next door, be looking in your window and be like, who is this? And so that might, be marketing while you're not even there. So that can be a positive. So so keep in mind who's good, who's not, who do you want to be around and who don't you want to be around?
Exactly.
Okay. So the next one that's just as important as location, from at least a broker standpoint, is zoning. You want to make sure that your business is an approved use for the location. So is the space you're looking at, is it permitted for medical office? If you need a surgical suite on site, can you do that? So typically it is going to be your responsibility as the buyer or tenant to check and confirm that you can operate your business practice in the space you want. The landlord won't necessarily do that. Or they might say, oh yeah, you can. But like you said, it's the worst thing you can do is get locked into a long-term lease only to find out you can't put your business there. I think that's just the tragedy story.
So that kind of leads to, I mentioned earlier, keeping the end in mind. What do you really need? So in a sense, when you think about your ideal practice and project and think from where you are today, what you want it to look like maybe 3 years from now. What do you want this practice to look like 3 years from now? Or what do you need for the absolute Mac Daddy practice that you want that will help you grow and have the production and the low amount of stress that you want? So then with what Sarah's talking about with zoning, you need to create a list of what do you really want inside the practice. And I'm talking about, for example, what do you visualize? Like if you walk through a practice that you've loved or you've seen something online, just like when someone buys a house, you get on House or something like that, and you start looking at all these different houses. You want to start making a list of, for example, if you have a reception area, how many chairs do you want in the reception area? What do you need? Okay. How many production chairs do you need? Meaning if you're an oral surgeon, how many chairs do you want to actually utilize? And then even with that, for example, I have one client that, he had a surgical suite inside his practice. Well, that's great. It's just like having a hospital operating room in your office, but I've been in some where, yes, they had a surgical suite and it's a little bit bigger than a normal surgical room. His was big enough that you could literally take a gurney all the way around the surgical chair. Okay. That was a huge room. That was almost the size of like 2 to 3 other operatories in another practice. Okay. So it was a massive room. So when you really start thinking about, again, like what do you need and want? You go back historically, everybody had the X-ray developer room. Well, in the old practices, they've now been converted to like storage closets and things like that, or it's now the employee lounge. But it's kind of funny because, the needs that were out there a couple years ago are not what they need now. So even the way the world of dentistry has evolved, but you need to think about how you're going to practice, the number of chairs you're going to need to practice to run the practice that you want, the types of procedures that you're going to do. And then you also start thinking about things like treatment coordinator rooms and what do you want them to look like and the size of those to look like and so on. So when you make that list of wants, again, that goes to that commercial real estate agent and say, these are the kinds of things that I need to accommodate when I select my space. So in a sense, like if you gave a list like that to Sarah, she'd take the list and she'd start flipping through all these different listings and go, nope, nope, nope. Okay, set this one aside. Nope, 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 set this one aside. So, yeah. So that was number 4. That's really thinking about what are your space requirements so you can hand that to the real estate agent and say, this is what I'm looking for.
Correct. Visibility. All right. So ask yourself, is it necessary for you to have lots of eyes on your business to be successful? All right. So it's becoming a lot more popular for businesses to want road frontage or signage on a main road in order to get your brand out and increase exposure. Okay. So this is definitely going to be practice specific. So we were joking. I'm like, hey, Kevin, when was the last time, you were driving down the road and you saw a sign for an oral surgeon and you were like, honey, stop the car. I want to go get my wisdom teeth out today. We all know it doesn't work that way. So for them, high visibility might not be as important, whereas maybe a generalist that might be who's starting up, having that visibility or even, that free advertising of a sign just for all the cars driving by every day. Or like you said, since COVID, there's been a really increased convergence of retail and medical. And so that there's a greater opportunity now to have a wider variety of people, seeing your business. So if you're located in that retail center, you just have, hey, I might just be going to Target, but 3 doors down, there's a pediatric place. So I can be like, oh, I can come here too. So you have to think about who needs to see you. How important is that to have a lot of eyes on your business for success?
And so with that also, because all these things are kind of intertwined, it's like a lot of these things, and actually my wife's real estate business partner, he has this example where he goes through and he says, if he has somebody who's looking for, say, waterfront property on Lake Norman, okay, he has a series of blocks, and he'll say, you get to choose, okay? So there's price, there's location, there's condition of the house, there's square footage, and where you are on the lake. Okay, so it's not just the location, but you could be in a certain town or in a certain neighborhood, but you might be back of Cove, or you might be Point Main Lake kind of thing, right? And all those things, like if you want the first floor, well, the price thing automatically slides up, right?
Right.
So you kind of have to take some of these things into consideration and know that, it could either be, yes, you can get a great deal, but you also might be making an investment in some automatic marketing just on where you choose, right?
Correct. I mean, the same goes, for office and retail space. If you have that road frontage so people can see the front of your space just driving by, you're going to pay a little bit more, versus if you're in the back of the center. However, you might be in the back, but if they have great road signage, you still might be able to advertise your sign, even though they can't see your space. So it's kind of a give and take, but the same thing for the office space. But yeah, do you need to be right there up front, or can you be tucked away and, people get referred to you, so they come to you off referrals? So
absolutely.
Keep in mind.
So another one, which is, it somewhat goes hand in hand with the space requirements that I was talking about, but that was the square footage. And so that was number 6, I believe. And when we think about square footage, you have to start again with, what do you really want it to look like? Because yes, you can pull and you can squeeze all these things into a certain space, and yes, I can get them all in there, but it might feel somewhat like a Cooper Mini inside that, and not knocking the Cooper Mini, but it is not a Yukon XL,
Right.
And what do you want that feel to look like? Because if you take the list of requirements, okay, to your commercial real estate agent, you also have to think about that square footage of the practice as a whole, but also start thinking about the rooms. Do you want your rooms to be of a certain size? Like I mentioned with that surgical suite, it was massive. Like it may have been 15 by 20 or something like that, or it might have been bigger than that still. Like I said, you could get a gurney around this chair and get it in and out of the room. So it had massive doors. It had massive space inside the room. It felt like you were kind of like in a cathedral or something. But, the point is like when you take those requirements and then you apply them to square footage, you might start thinking, if Sarah, for example, she found you this fabulous space and all these other, it's checking all these other boxes, but now your operatories are going to be like 8 by 8. Yeah, that's not going to work. So next, and it's because we figure out what are really the square footage requirements to have that type of practice that we really want.
So the next one I think this is a huge one, and I think we're both going to have some things to say about this, is accessibility. So the easier it is for them to access you, the greater the likelihood they're going to come back, and the greater the likelihood they're going to refer people to you. So a couple things to consider. Number 1, can they find you? All right. There's nothing more frustrating than not being able to find your doctor, to find any type of location. So you don't want your front desk always taking calls where they have to give directions to lost patients. Frustration associated with finding you is a really bad first impression, I think, for anybody. And it's just not a good use of the time to clog up the phones for that. So can they find you? Number 2, how far is the walk from the parking lot to your front door? Okay. So do you need to be on the first floor, or can you be on a second or third floor with elevator access? So for this, I'm thinking, think moms with strollers and, a couple kids in tow. Think about maybe your elderly patient with a walker or a cane. So how far is that walk? Have they expelled all their energy just to find you and get to you? Or do they lose a kid in the process? The next one is, do you need a separate entrance for staff? Or do you want them walking through the waiting room, with all the patients sitting and staring at them when they get there? So typically having that separate entrance is going to be a good call. And then the last thing for me for accessibility is, if you do procedures, are you going to need a separate discharge area with pull around access for pickup? So those are things to think about.
And my number 8 dovetails with this, because these are ones where I've seen direct examples of where it works really well and doesn't work well at all. And that is your reception and parking. So the reception, I've seen ones where, they have a really nice practice and everything is finished beautifully, but they have 6 chairs, and it's kind of a small space, and you have multiple practitioners working in this facility. And sometimes you have a parent that shows up with a couple of kids and one kid's being seen. Well, they've taken up half your seating. Okay, and you have multiple practitioners working. Or if you have a couple of people where maybe it's older couples and they come together, and Edith goes back for her appointment and her husband stays, so he's taking up one chair, but he's not going to be seen. So you have to really think again about the reception area and whether you'd really have enough seating to accommodate everyone. Otherwise, to Sarah's point, it's not making it fun for people to come back, because there's nowhere to sit. And I've seen them where they're standing around, or they're having to go back out to their car. And if going back to the car can be an exception, and quite honestly, in today's world, maybe they're going back to do business, and that's fine. They're getting on a Zoom in their car or something like that. But the other piece of it is the parking. And I've seen examples, we think about patients first, and that's great. But if you have, for example, 24 treatment chairs in your facility and 12 parking spots, which I've seen, that doesn't work well, and now your patients are having to park way down the street and walk up the street. And might be fine on a cool, sunny day, but it's not fun on a rainy day. It's not fun on a sweltering hot day. It's not fun if it's snowing or anything like that. So again, we're making it hard on them. And in that one I'm mentioning, they maximize the facility, and if you're standing inside of it, that was fantastic. But when you only have 12 parking spots for patients, that's not good. And then on the flip side of things is parking for staff. And that's actually another thing. I have a client that they bought and they did really well. But now they just had a $5 million month. They're getting to the point of having this fantastic efficiency. They're really knocking it out of the ballpark production wise, but because of the patient flow that they're having coming through now, they have nowhere else to go. And their staff is having to park down the street and walk back up the street to leave parking for the patients. So they prioritize the patients, and I applaud them all for doing that. But it too would be great if we can have parking for everybody, right?
Well, you want a great experience for everybody, client centric, but still the family needs to be comfortable. Your employees need to enjoy coming to work,
So I typically think about how many staff you're going to hire, in the long run. And then think about 2 cars for every chair that you have, because you have one person who's here being seen, and then one parking spot for somebody who's waiting to be seen. So you figure you will minimally need the number of parking spots for your staff plus 2 parking spots for every chair you have.
This isn't really glamorous, but it's just as important, and that is utilities. All right, so you need to know what utilities are available on site. So that can be everything. Are you on city water? Are you well? Are you septic? Obviously you need to consider your plumbing considerations. All right, because you need water in just about every part of your building. So is the property on a slab or a crawl space? Now, you obviously can operate on both, but the cost for your build out to plumb the entire space is definitely going to be different if it's one versus the other. You want to make sure you have a sufficient power supply. All right. And the next one, on kind of piggybacking on that, is you want to make sure you have an appropriate internet speed. All right. So with all the technology that we have these days, you need to make sure that you're not buffering or that you just don't have it at the inappropriate time. And then the last thing that's a huge one as well is you need to know how many HVAC units you have and their age, because those can be kind of a capital expenditure that is going to pricey. So those are kind of things that they're not glamorous, but they're very important. The foundational things that you need to be able to run your practice.
But they can be glamorous when things get hot when you're trying to work, right?
Right.
Or the $15,000 outdoor unit that you have to replace is competing with outfitting another operatory so you can increase your production, right?
Correct.
So,
and those are all things that, as the broker, we help negotiate in a lease. So who pays for what?
Number 10 is, and again, it might be one where you may or may not seem glamorous, but it will not only contribute to the productivity, but it also contribute to in a sense, like the experience that the patients have. So it contributes to the experience for the staff and the patients, and that is the flow. So when you think about getting your space requirements together, because again, my interest and my goal for every client is the least amount of stress with the most amount of production. This kind of applies here, because if your practice has good flow, you think about an oral surgery unit, you think about if you're running high-speed drills or anything like that, and we have noises and sounds and different things coming from the back, in a sense, you want that to be somewhat hidden from the patients who are waiting. You also have flow in terms of it. You don't need to give your patients a GPS tracker to make it back to the front desk to check out and schedule their next appointment, right? Yes. Some of them are built like bowling alleys, okay? And they can work depending on the space and what your requirements are, but that doesn't hide a lot, okay? So when you think about the flow of it, you also think about how you situate the different rooms in the practice so it totally makes sense. Your doctor, if you have an office, you may want that, at the farthest region of the practice so you can duck and hide and have your lunch or make a phone call or do something like that without being completely visible and conspicuous. One of the stories I had is a client recently was starting to look for new space, and the commercial real estate agent or broker, I guess, that was representing that space was really trying to push him on the space. And I think it's because they didn't have anybody else to get rid of it. They couldn't find someone. And it was this like weird triangular space. And they even went and had it all laid out for him, but every room had these weird angles. And in a sense, for his surgical practice, it just wasn't going to work. And it was great that they laid it all out, because it basically showed this won't work, and for your practice, maybe it will. And if you get a fantastic deal on it, fine, but make sure that the flow of the whole practice really meets what you want. And it's all laid out in a way that the patients come in, they exit, we can find all of our staff, we can find all of our patients, and it totally makes sense because it will contribute to your day. So.
Yeah, I want to make one last statement that just kind of had hit me as we were talking about all this, from my years of being a clinician now to all this. Nothing that we talked about today has anything to do with your skill as a clinician, right? So you can be amazing at what you do. You can have all the great Google reviews, you can get all the clients, but if your space doesn't necessarily match that, it can hinder you, it can hurt you. All right. And also too, It's, hey, you can be amazing and really great and an expert at what you do too, but all these things that you have to consider aren't anything that we really learned in school, you know? So
No.
it's, you got to bring in, you know, the experts on this, because this is probably, you know, your space is going to probably be like your second biggest cost, you know? I know we don't talk about money today, but be great at what you do, but make sure that your surroundings complement and express, you know, how great you are as a clinician.
And to your point, you know, this is where I really believe practitioners need to lean on their experts. You know, I'm very big on that. You know, lean on your accountant. There's every, you know, I see examples all the time of where they don't really lean into their accountant enough, and it's costing them dearly in profitability and taxes and things like that. But also, you know, there's experts like you, me, and so on that, you know, in a sense, they should be using folks like you to leverage themselves. So that's why you take this list of 10 things, you create your list of wants and what you're, you know, you're hard and fast on and things you're flexible on, and then you let them go do the work. Because otherwise, you know, and because from my perspective, I want to see my clients either working gloved up and working on patients, or they're working on their business, not in it. Because I see, you know, if you're doing stuff like this, you're like, if you're the one who's sitting up, you know, at 11 o'clock at night and you're watching YouTube videos and you're flipping through all the listings, I mean, mind you, you might want to do that. But if you're spending a lot of hours doing this, that's what you pay someone else to do, so you can produce and you actually have a life. So that's, right. You know, that's my shtick on that.
Yes, watching us will help equip you, but it doesn't replace us.
No, and I think it's, and quite honestly, my way of looking at it with a lot of things is, you know, the practitioners I work with are the CEO of their practice. And if you're the CEO, you know, like Jeff Bezos does not, I got 2 Amazon packages this morning. Jeff Bezos did not drive those packages to my house. He had somebody that did that. And as a CEO, you manage the operations, and you need to know enough, whether it's your attorney, your accountant, your commercial real estate agent, your consultant, whatever it is, you need to know enough to get the value out of them, but not do their job, because that's what they're there to do, is to leverage you.
Exactly. Oh, so, it's a good segue to you, leverage.
That's why I named my company what I did.
Yep. Perfect segue.
So, are you good?
I'm good. Are you good?
I'm good too. Yeah. Okay. So there were your 10 things. These are 10 things that will help you pick the right space, the proper space, a space that will not only provide you some additional marketing, but provide great experiences for your team, for your patients, great visibility, and make sure that you're as productive as humanly possible, and make sure that you have the least amount of stress. And quite honestly, also not said, this is the kind of thing that picking the right space could mean the freedom to retire earlier. Because if you stressed out and you enjoy what you do, then you maximize your production. If you're not stressed out because you have enough space, again, you might produce enough that maybe you can retire by 55 instead of 65 and still sweating it, wondering whether I can do it or not. So with that said, it sounds like you and I might do another one sometime in the near future, maybe about the money side.
Maybe. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for the video. So thank you very much, Sarah. And as I said, stay tuned for the next video. If you've not done it before, hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification button, because again, if she and I do another video and it's about the money, that's where you'll get the notification.